we're going to be looking at how to make that bass sound in this video. I love these sorts of sounds. Yeah. So it's a very simple sound, and I wanted to feature one of the newer things in SynthMaster 3. So they've added this Formant filter now. And I'm also using the new Waveshaper. Our previous video on SynthMaster 3 covered the new Waveshaper. So in this one, we're going to be focused a little bit more on this vowel filter. So the patch itself is extremely simple. There's really only two moves. There's now a filter and a shaper. And I touched nothing else. So if you open up the default patch and if you right click up here and go to initialize preset, you'll get sent to a preset with a sawtooth wave as your default wave. And I went ahead and added these two sounds. Let's go ahead and do that really quick. We will right click, initialize preset. Let's make this a bit bigger. And right now, just so we're clear, these are very low notes. They are extremely low. The resonance in the Waveshaper are going to make it so that this does not matter, essentially. And we'll need to play notes this low to get the sound we want. It'll sound like this now. Yeah. So what we're going to do now is go over to the state variable filter that's here by default. We're going to click this cog and we are going to replace it. And we have all these things we can replace it with. Among them is the Formant filter. So now the Formant filter is in the chain and you can pick a vowel to start and a vowel to end. I believe I left the vowel to start the same, but I did change the ending vowel. And what that means is when you go from Formant to Formant, it is going to go from the starting one to the ending one. So currently they're the same, so there's no change. But if we come over here, I think I picked soprano E, but honestly, you really can't do wrong. You can pick almost anything and it'll work out. So now we can morph between two formants, and it sounds like this. Yeah. And we need to get the volume up. And for that, I also wanted to use some distortion. So I added a new Waveshaper. So if you come in here at the bottom, there is a Waveshaper. And we need to add that into our chain. So you got to click and hold. And single click actions delete and add lines and deactivate and activate things. So when you click and hold, it's a little disorienting at first because there's like a delay. Because once you've held for a certain amount of time, it switches to a drag action. So just be aware of that when you're working in here. I'm going to get rid of this line here. I think actually we need to connect up a new one. Connect one out here. And delete that. There we go. And so there we go. We've got our chain. I went for the fold sign because it has a more rounded sound. If you go for something like the triangle, it's got a lot more higher harmonics going on, and so I didn't really like that. Yeah. Okay, so now we need to dial in the filter. The resonance it's focusing on is way up here. And so we are going to go ahead and bring the frequency down to find one that we like. And this is going to be a little choosy because it'll depend on the drive setting you have here as well. It can really hit this differently. I'm going to go ahead and just bring this down though. Like so. And then I have a few things I am automating here. So we've got three controls I think are really worth automating. You have the resonance control, the spacing, and the formant. So the resonance, let me just show you what the resonance does. That's it. And so it's just a little more ringy. I like to have it high at the beginning here, and then I actually pull it off during this long note, and I slowly bring it back in. So this one is a lot less resonancy, and this side's much more resonancy. It sounds like this. If we were to have low resonance the entire time, it would sound like this. They're just options in tonality. And as I build out the track, I'll have more of an opinion on when I might want to vary this. Right now, I went for a higher resonance value. This is something I go back and forth on constantly. So who knows what I'll settle on in the very end. The next thing I like to move, obviously the frequency cutoff is a good decision. I do very subtle moves with this because with the high resonance, any large move can sound quite aggressive, especially when we're dealing with such short notes. For example, if I make this big, yeah, it's just like too much. So these little itty bitty moves tend to be what I go for. If we didn't have this on, so that motion, even though it looks tiny, it really does a lot for the sound. And so if I find a particular static spot I like, I'll stay at that location. But these itty bitty moves are going to be good. So what I like to do for these is really open it up and move them around. If you are in FL Studio, which is the DAW I'm in right now, if we double click, automation curves have a min and a max value that you can limit them to. So you can use this huge range and have it only represent a small range. Like we could really squish this. And so now I could do these much bigger moves and it won't matter as much because the range between the min and the max is much smaller, allowing much easier control. If we could bring down the max value. And it just makes it a lot more meaningful. I did it the hard way and chose not to use this cool tip. And I just made it really big and tried to draw it in. But if I had been a bit smarter, I might have gone after it with this. Whenever a knob is too sensitive for the automation curve, you end up making these really tiny automation curves. That can be a great way to deal with it. So that is what's going on with the frequency. And then we've also got spacing, which is these things going back and forth, and the formant itself moving back and forth. So if you give a listen to these parameters varying on ours, they sound like this. That's the frequency, resonance, spacing, and formants. That's the gist of the sound. You automate these things and you find a cool riff. And with the notes being so low, it works out really great. You can actually go even lower just because, especially if you have a higher resonance value. So if we take this and set the frequency a bit higher, give it a higher resonance. Yeah. I don't think you're going to want to go that low, but it is possible to get some unique sounds, even if it's just a single note or something. It's unique to the things that sort of just happen with formant filters. But anyways, that's the formant filter inside of a SynthMaster 3. And some things you could try messing with and how I generally work with it. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below. Subscribe and hit that bell icon for future videos, and have a blessed day.